Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So every year we try and do a utility status update for the council, just to kind of give you an idea of where we are project-wise, how the system's doing, and basically where our financials lay. And also at that time, we're usually looking at any rate adjustments that need to happen. So similar. So from today, the objectives basically is just to go through all three systems that we've got, water, wastewater, storm drainage, give you a revenue expense trends that we're seeing right now, and then any proposed rate adjustments that we want to talk about moving forward for next year. So feel free to ask me any questions, keep it informal for us. I mean, ask us questions as we're going through. We'll keep it pretty short, and looking for feedback from you guys on anything that you want to know more about. So we'll start off with the water system. So with the completion of the new water treatment plant in 2018, the staff has been mainly focused on water line replacement, looking at big water lines to replace, small water lines to replace. Also been looking at the demolition of the existing water treatment plant. We're under contract right now to have plans drawn up for that. Sounds weird, but we're having demolition plans put together. Anytime you bid something, you've got to bid apples to apples. So we're doing that, going through the environmental process with that. Hope to have the demolition process going later this summer. It's all dependent on state agencies and whatnot. So we're working through that process. Along with looking at a lot of different water lines to replace in the system. Give you an idea of where we're at this year for production. We've got about 588 million gallons of water produced so far this fiscal year as of March. Interesting tidbit, that's about 27 million gallons more for that time frame than it was the year past. So we're seeing an additional revenue stream there as well as picking that up. So the increasing amount of water billed is also up an upswing as well. And we're attributing that to kind of the dry summer that we had last year. And then we're also doing a lot of meter replacements. As meters age, they tend to read low. So we're actually billing the correct amount. And then we've had a lot of new development come onto our system as well. So there was definitely an increase that we've noticed, and it's also reflected in the revenue stream for this year from what we had originally anticipated. Again, back to water mains, there's a lot of large diameter and small diameter water mains that need to be replaced for various reasons, whether they leak. We've got areas where our pressure is lower than it should be, and not anything drastic, but in order to provide good fire service, we need some upgrades through that. We've also been setting aside money for our membrane replacement at the water treatment plant, so that's not a big hit when that happens. In fact, I think this year was the last year. I think we're in pretty good shape for setting aside money for that. And that's likely a 10-year replacement. So from the time the plant was built, so here within the next 5 to 6 years, we'll probably start looking at replacement of some of those membranes. Kind of some fun facts, I guess, if you want to call it that way. We got about 82 miles of distribution main in our system. If you take the average of what we've done over the last 5 years, or some years it's more, but it's approximately 2,000 to 2,500 lineal feet of main replacement on a yearly average. If you took all that together, that equates to about 170-year life cycle for our water mains, which a typical average ductile iron pipe, which is what we use, has a 100-year life cycle. So you can see we're well below the recommended replacement cycle. I don't think we're advocating for we got to hit this 100-year life cycle. We tend to replace more on what's needed rather than, hey, this pipe's old. So just something to keep in mind, that we do have aging infrastructure, and we need to be in a place to where we can continue to maintain it as things fail. And just because it says it's got a 100-year life cycle, maybe it's 110, who knows? That's just the recommended for ductile iron. Some of the upcoming projects we've got the Walker Road water line replacement as part of the West Side Interceptor. That replaces water line from Stoltz Hill to 6th Street. Right now, there's a 12-inch AC line in there that's about 45 years old. You ask, why do we replace that? The construction that we're doing down there, the complete road reconstruction, it doesn't make sense to leave an asbestos cement water line in the ground in order to have it leak only when we get the road finished and have to dig it up and replace it then. So we're replacing that. That's been part of the project. Stoltz Hill Road water line extension. We're extending water line down Stoltz Hill Road from Airport Road. That's in conjunction with the Airport Road traffic signal. There's still a lot of things up in the air with that in terms of development. Waiting on a few things, waiting on right of way. So once we have all that in place, we'll pull the trigger on that traffic signal that's out there, and water line extension will go along with that, sidewalks. It's a fairly substantial project. Jason's doing
Hey, Ron.
go ahead.
Excuse me. On the traffic signal at Stoltz Hill Road, is that still on? It's just part of the project?
Yeah, so give you a little update. So we're waiting, the property on the southeast corner is in county, and right now Lynn County is going through the condemnation process for that, for 175 square feet of right of way. So they're going through that process. And then the property on the northwest corner is talking about some redevelopment there. So until we have all, which the redevelopment would trigger a third lane on Stoltz Hill Road, which would indicate moving the traffic signal. So we're kind of trying to piece all this at once rather than get the traffic signal put in and 6 months later move it again. So we're working through that. But yes, it's a budgeted project, but there's just a lot of balls in the air, I guess, if you will, right now until we can actually pull the trigger on it and not have to go back and redo it in a year. So, yep.
So the main holdup is county?
Not necessarily the county, just going through that process to get the right of way. And then, like I said, again, if the development does occur there, we've worked with them on a couple of development review team meetings on the northwest corner, which would trigger a third lane on Stoltz Hill to have a protected turn lane. Then we wouldn't want to, all of a sudden, along with that, we would get additional right of way from the store. Because it's the same owners, and it would make that intersection a little bit better. So we're kind of holding off a little bit until we know. I mean, I would guess that we'll have some answers here within the next couple of months on direction where we're going to head, whether we just pull the trigger on what we're doing now or whether we just have a little bit more time to wait on that. But we've been pushing both parties to get to that because right now we're on about an 8-month time frame in order to get ductile iron pipe from suppliers. And I think the same holds true for signal poles and everything else. So any project that we put out is going to be a 16, 17-month project in order to get materials. So you're not going to see anything happen for a long time until you can get materials. That's just the supply chain issues that we're having right now. So, and every developer is going through that as well. On-site chlorine generation project. That's something Jason's doing at the water treatment plant. So we'll be able to generate our own chlorine rather than depending on a third party to deliver that. I'm not sure the details on that. If you have more questions about that, Jason can probably fill you in on any of that.
Real quick, are we doing that? And if I'm correct, didn't we have a chlorine shortage? What was it, a year ago or somewhere along those lines? So this would help us.
We did, yeah. This will make it, we'll hold our own straw. We'll be able to continue to provide safe water.
Fantastic. Thank you.
7th Street water line replacement. So this has been on the books for, I don't know, 3 years now. And we do have the money set aside in the water fund to replace the water line. But as soon as we put equipment on that piece of 7th Street from basically Oak to F Street, we're going to destroy the street. There's no way around it. So we're trying to put together a project, a whole project to do a complete road reconstruction, utilities through there. And we're really close. I think the one place where we're lacking a little bit is probably storm drainage, but you'll see as we come to the budget committee this year that we've put money in reserves for both the water line, roadway, and I believe sewer line as well. So we're getting closer to that. And my goal is to to probably have that done, or at least started by next spring, summer, somewhere in there. It's just going to depend on how funding plays out, but we're close. Highway 20 water line replacement. So that's a water line replacement. Right now, there's a 6-inch water line from basically Russell Drive and Highway 20 all the way over to, oh gosh, it used to be the mattress store, basically that little motel right in there. It ties into a 12-inch. We're intending to replace that. That's scheduled to be replaced, which we have the money set aside for the water line. But that's scheduled to be replaced with the Dewey Street intersection realignment. We have a meeting actually this week with ODOT. They're very interested in participating. Lynn County's interested in participating. So we're likely going to see some movement on that project. I would guess that construction's in the 24 realm based on the federal funding that ODOT can bring to the table. So we're actually meet tomorrow and kick it off and see what we can get done with that. But that'll be a multi-million-dollar project and a real headache to try and put water line out there, so. The other thing we're doing is the automatic meter reading capability project. Basically, that'll put towers up and we'll be able to automatically read meters from City Hall, and there would be very little meter reading that goes on anymore. So it'll be automated. So I believe there's money set aside next year in the reserve fund. I don't think we had quite enough to pull that project off too. So
How much of the city will be covered by that?
Well, when we're all done, the whole city.
Really?
When the project's complete, that's the goal.
Yeah. Okay.
And then lockoffs can happen remotely from City Hall, from finance office.
Is it Wi-Fi or?
No, the radio read pucks that are in the meters, and then they'll go shoot, I guess, basically, to our
Okay, yeah.
towers that we'll have in 2 different locations within the city.
Nice. Cool.
so that's kind of it.
I have a question as well.
Oh, go ahead.
Once that's all said and done, will we be down an FTE? Will anybody lose their job because it won't be necessary?
No, we've got other stuff for them to do.
Yeah.
Government. Yeah.
Chasing leaks in our water mains, probably. Any other questions with the water fund? That's kind of where we're at this year, what's going on. Okay. Moving on to the wastewater fund. So to date, again, fiscal year 21-22, we've treated about 1.18 billion gallons of sewage. So in the time frame from July 1 to basically the end of March. One of the other things that's happened out at the wastewater plant is we have a new filter belt press that was purchased and installed out there to help us with biosolids. That's a new one. That's one of the things that's going on at the wastewater plant. We're continuing to see a substantial increase in the amount of failed sewers and leaking sewers. In fact, about 45 minutes before this meeting, we were out looking at a failed sewer at the intersection of Williams and Wheeler, which is on our main trunk line, which could equate to, we've got some more investigation to do there, but it's not looking the best. So we've got some work to do with that. To give you an idea, Scott Wilkerson, who's our crew chief for the collection system, every time I see him coming, I want to hide because he's always got something new. I got to give him kudos for getting out there in our system and really digging things up. But it's like, okay, let's get what we've got first. But you kind of have to take the most emergent pieces at first, and if there's things that we can hold off on and catch the next time, that's kind of how we're running the sewer replacement right now. It's not based on age. It's not based on hey, we should replace this line. It's based on what we're finding in the system as we do it and using the dollars that we have to fix those emergency repairs and make those emergency repairs.
So you're basically putting out fires.
It's very reactive utility. Yes.
A good snapshot of what's happening in our collection system. When we have a rain event, we'll go from treating 1.4 to 1.5 million gallons at the plant to up to 19 million gallons a day. That's how much groundwater infiltration, how many holes we have in our system.
Yeah, because if you go back and you think about the 588 million gallons of water that we produced and the 1.18 billion that we've treated, it's almost double. So they're very leaky, but we continue to fix them as we have time. Our maintenance crews are constantly out cleaning. I think last year they cleaned about 29,000 linear feet of pipe and TV'd almost 21,000 linear feet of pipe. So that's how we're finding all this stuff. They're very active in the system. They're out there every day with either the Vector or the TV van. And then usually they end up in my office or Jason's office telling us all the good things that we need to fix and what we need to do from there. So again, go back to sewer. We got about 64 miles of sanitary sewer pipe in our system. That doesn't account for manholes or laterals. That's just sanitary sewer main. If you take the average on what we replace, and of course, this is all dependent on depth because the deeper you are, the more expensive it is. But on average, we replace 1,500 to 2,000 lineal feet of pipe per year. Average life cycle on what we use is PVC. We got a lot of clay, we got a lot of concrete in the system is 50 to 80 years. We're well below the recommended life cycle on our sewer system. Again, we continue to push to get as much done as we can, but honestly, in the climate that we're in right now, it's extremely difficult. Things have cost so much that, it's really tough to get to all of it. And that's where we go into the reactive mode and we fix things that, pose life, safety, health risk and people that are plugged up. That's what we kind of focus our efforts on rather than looking at the system. We still look at the system as a whole, but it's mostly reactive at this point. So current and upcoming projects, right now, obviously the West Side Interceptor is in full swing. Kind of give you an update on that. We've installed pipe from Oak and Airway intersection all the way over to Stoltz Hill and Oak Creek. So if you can picture that alignment, it goes all the way down Airway, all the way out to Stoltz Hill and then over to Oak Creek. So we've got a good chunk of pipe in. Right now, we're working on getting the manholes finished up, and then we're going to work on getting the roadways, Airway, and also Stoltz Hill put back together here in the next month and a half. So the restoration will be done.
What percent about is that done?
So in terms of dollars, this month's pay estimate put us at about 33%. Right. So we've still got all of Vaughn Lane to do, 5th Street, Crowfoot, come back up South Main a little bit, and then Walker Road. So there's still a substantial portion. I think the good part, we've got all the really, really, really deep pipe in. Now we're sitting at average about 17. We were in some places 21, and that's a big operation to get that. So we're making good headway. They're on schedule. In fact, in some cases, they're ahead of schedule. They've had 2 crews out there working in different locations. My guess is with the amount of work that's out there right now, we'll probably only see 1 crew from here on out once they get a few things done, just because there's so much work in the industry that, and they having a hard time finding people to actually go to work for them. So, which is fine. They'll still maintain that schedule. So things like, financially with the project, if you remember back when we did the GMP, there's a $1.8 million allowance in the guaranteed maximum price for dewatering. Basically, we did that because we didn't know how much dewatering we were going to have. Looks like that's going to come in way under. I mean, we won't know the answer to that, but we've hit the deep stuff, and unless something changes or we hit something dramatic, looks like there's going to be some good savings there. We've had a few change orders. We gambled a little bit on our restoration and thought, well, we could probably get away with just doing this. Reality is we're going to end up with more pavement restoration just based on the equipment size and the road structure that was out there. We're having to replace a little bit more than we thought we were. But overall, the project's on track. I think it's going to come in under budget, and I think we'll have a good product when we're done. So, One of the things, going back to what Jason said with the treating of this, we wrote a change order through contingencies to have all of our manholes, 70-some manholes sealed with an epoxy sealer. It's a separate sealing portion or process that you do. We typically would do it on our aged manholes, but seeing what's coming out of the manufacturers right now is very porous concrete. In some cases, it's very green. It hasn't had time to set up or cure. And this is all due to the amount of work that's out in the industry. I've had contractors tell me that they've had manhole pieces show up and they're still in forms. And they got to let them sit there with the forms. So we're going to try and spend the extra money and get the manholes sealed. They're deep, so you got a lot of ground pressure. So it's probably worth the effort to do that, so we have less to treat when we get back there. Other projects, we got Lupine, Larkspur, Foxglove pipe burst set up for this next fiscal year. So pipe bursting, basically, we're not going to open cut the road. We're going to go in and we're going to dig small pits, take a pipe ram down through, and about 2,300 lineal feet of pipe bursting. Like there's 70-some laterals that we'll do too. And this is on a section that is on the south part of town where we've seen a lot of inflow and infiltration. So we're trying to upgrade this pipe and try and cut down on some of that. We're going to try this and see how it works, just to prevent so much road restoration. And the streets in the area are falling apart so bad that we don't want to put a bunch of equipment on it, and we'll just put a thin overlay on it when we're done rather than completely redig the street due to lack of street funding. Strawberry Lane sewer extensions, just a small sewer extension off of F Street headed to the south to pick up some failing laterals. We got some wastewater treatment plant projects. Some of those are still up in the air right now, but we do have money budgeted for those. 7th Street sewer extension, like I said, that's in reserves, and hopefully we can get to that here real soon and make one big project out of that. So that's kind of it in the wastewater section. Are there any other questions with that? Okay.
How is the project going of cleaning up the mess that we had to clean up? Just kind of an update on that part of it.
The plant's running really well. We're still finding some unique things that we're dealing with as they come. We're hoping to have a little bit of calm next fiscal year. I think everybody would like to see me quit spending money out there. So we think we're to a point where the plant's going to continue to meet permit and function, and we've got a good handle on replacement cycles and maintenance and fix things that were absolutely failed. I think we're in a really good spot right now.
Good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, moving on into the storm drainage system. We got approximately 60 miles of storm pipe in our collection system. That doesn't account for our catch basin runs, which I don't even want to think about how many of those are. I mean, it'd be huge. On average, every 2 to 3 years, we probably replace 1,500 lineal feet of pipe, and normally that's with some other project. And normally it's like with a road reconstruction project. It's not just going out and primarily targeting storm drainage. So that equates to, I didn't even put it down. I don't even know what the life cycle is on that. It's the same life cycle for materials as you would have with our sewer, 50 to 80 years, but very substantial life cycle. Our new drainage master plan, which I'm hoping we get to bring to you guys in June. It's pretty much done. It's got a capital project section, and there's going to be multiple improvements that are going to be recommended and upgrades in the system. And all these factors, are going to require additional funding to meet requirements and keep up with what's going on in the system. One of the things that we're finding, with our TMDL, which is our total maximum daily load, or any time we pull a wetland permit, we are required to go through DEQ water quality. DEQ water quality, for instance, on the west side Interceptor, just on Walker Road, we are charged with not only treating the new impervious surface, but the entire roadway surface. Well, what does that look like? It could be anywhere from drainage swales to water quality catch basins, which are multimedia catch basins that have to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. We've opted to use the water quality catch basins and manholes this time. I think from operations and Jason's perspective, the swales become garbage collectors. If you look at Airport Road and the infiltration basins, not to say that there's not a place for them, but they require more maintenance for probably more periods of time during the year. Whereas if we have water quality catch basins, it's all right, once every 3 to 5 years, we'll go in and replace the media and okay, we're done for 3 to 5 years rather than an ongoing maintenance. So those are the things that come out of that with this water quality, and it's only going to get more stringent as we continue on down the path and grow. Ask Albany, they just turned the MS4. I mean, they're really taxed with a lot to deal with stormwater and what it requires them to do. We're still working on the drainage rate change that we talked about last summer. We're getting closer to having some actual data. I know Casey with GIS has been working on a bunch of stuff to get us to where we can start having some discussions with the city council. I think once we get it to a point and can kind of get it into a format that we can all understand without too much difficulty, we'll probably bring it back and have a work session and show you exactly what that is. Yes, absolutely. We want to do that, and we want to make sure that the public's involved in this. One thing it's not going to do is it's not going to affect most of your residential customers, right? It's going to affect your commercial and industrial. And likely for most of your smaller commercial industrial, their storm drainage bill will go down, just based on what we're seeing with some of the preliminary work that we've done. We'll have to wait and see, but it's your larger ones that are going to see a substantial increase. And so we'll bring that back, and so we can have the discussion, so we can walk through how we came up with that. Our storm work, very minor replacements. Again, unless it's with a major project, it's typically not happening. We're doing a lot of video inspection, cleaning. Again, our operations maintenance guys go out and do that. Scott and his guys spend a lot of time out there. So if you think about the amount of work that those 3 guys in the collections department have, they've got, 120 miles of pipe. That doesn't count manholes, and they're doing a bang-up job. They're keeping the system running well, and again, they're constantly in either mine or Jason's office asking, hey, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with that? And pretty soon you run out of ink to write it all down, and you just go, we're going to deal with stuff that we got to deal with. So they're doing a good job there. Any questions on the storm drainage utility? Okay. Moving on to the financial. So revenue expense trends for this year. Revenue's on track for all 3 utilities. It's at or above what we projected last fiscal year for the budget. So we're moving there. If you remember back, water, we're looking at probably close to 10% more than we projected. And that's based on the additional units billed for this year. So we'll see if that trend holds. Right now, it looks like it's just based on the meters, based on the additional meters that we have coming online. And, we've had some really dry summers, so people used a lot of water during that time frame. So that's what we're attributing it to. I don't have any other factual data other than that. We'll see what the trends are and kind of play with them from there and see what happens. And again, expenses for all 3 utilities are on track to come in slightly at or below budget. So we'll be on target for those. And unless it's the wastewater plant, it's going to be close. Oh. So one of the things we've talked about, Nancy and I and Jason and Matt have talked about is when we do rate adjustments. and what that looks like and how we've done them in the past. So what we've done in the past is we've taken each utility and said, hey, we're going to do, I don't know, X% in water, we're going to do an X% in storm drainage, and maybe we don't do a percent in the wastewater fund, and vice versa, whatever that is. And we've done it just as a straight percentage for folks on their billing. The other thing that we've kind of looked back at the last 5 years, I did a little bit of work to come up with, in the past, we've used 7 units as our average, and looking at our residential customers, it's more like 5.9 units. The chart down below, I just used 6 for round figures. It was easier instead of the 7 units. So that first page is how we've done rate increases in the past, or our inflationary increases, I should say. And if you go to the next page, this is what the proposal is moving forward, if council should agree. Basically, as we've shown there, when we do rate increases, 3% in water may not be enough, or 3% in drainage is definitely not enough, but 3% in sewer is okay. So rather than just take it and, hey, we're going to do 3% here, what we're looking at here is a 3% to the overall bill using the 5.9 or 6.0 average units. We're talking about a 3% rate increase to the entire bill. It equates to the same dollar value basically within a few cents. And then that way we can, if this year, like our drainage utility, we're running, we don't generate enough revenue to really do much with it in terms of capital projects. That way we can start building that without, hey, we want to raise everything at this amount, but it's basically just a hit of 3% to their bottom line bill. We've got different things that would trigger that. Our TMDL might say, hey, you need additional funds in your storm drainage. You need additional funds here. Or our MPDS permit, when we get that renewed, say, hey, your wastewater rates are low because you've got X, Y, and Z project to do. And those are just examples. Those aren't things that we necessarily see are coming at this point, but that's what we're looking at doing. So if just the chart below kind of gives you an idea of what that looks like. What we would propose this year is basically 4% to wastewater. We don't believe that there's any necessary rate increase needed in the water fund. I think we all want to kind of look at that since we've seen a 10% increase in revenue. And that is the cost, that's billed water. So that's the interesting piece to us. So we wouldn't propose anything there, let that sit for this year. And then the storm rate, it's a 30% increase, but it equates to $1.11 basically to your residents' bills. And that starts to build that fund in order to make it to where we can actually do some replacements and we can get some things done in the system. So questions, comments? No, opposed, yes, maybe?
I like the,
I was gonna say, basically, it's gonna go up the same amount. You're just targeting it to where you really need it,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
makes sense.
I like the total amount idea.
Okay.
That makes sense. And then you guys can kind of move that money in whatever direction it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think we would still want this body to, we're not going to say we want 3%, we're going to do what we do over here. We want you guys to be a part of that so that you know what we're intending to do with it. And that would be part of it. But I think in the past, it maybe is not, even though the dollar amount's the same, if you look at it, hey, it's just a 3% to your overall bill rather than 3% to this utility, I think it's going to give a little bit better. I mean, people are still going to be irritated at that, understandably so. And we don't want to raise them any more than what we need to. I think we run pretty lean staff as it is now. And the reality is the construction cost index last year for this area was about 21, 22%. And it's only going higher. I mean, our duct and iron pipe is doubled in the year. So we got to keep up with it as well. Otherwise, we won't have anything. So
I just want to comment, staff is working really hard to keep that rate increase at 3%. We recognize everyone is paying more, and that
Absolutely.
does include us paying more for everything right now. And so we're trying to recognize that for customers, but feel like we need to really build that base in stormwater. You heard Ron talk about the need to replace the 7th Street line. We just don't have enough money in storm drainage right now to do its share. And we don't want to do water, sewer, street, and then come back in a couple of years and have to do that storm drainage line. That's not a good use of public resources. So kudos for keeping that rate increase down. As Ron noted, costs are just skyrocketing. Materials are, if you can get them.
Yeah, I think the 30.33, obviously it looks like the percentage in terms of what I'm looking at is obviously a large percentage. But when you actually look at it, it's $1.11 a month extra. And it seems that, as Councilor Olfish pointed out, that's the fund that needs it the most. So I appreciate this approach, and I think it's great. So.
Okay. Well,
I
that's
agree as
what.
well. I agree as
Go ahead.
well. I was about to say the same thing, Michelle. If someone were to approach me and say, well, it's going up 30%, I'd say, well, yeah, that's really only $1.11. I'd rather look at it that way and the bottom line of 3% than have a conversation about 30% increase. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's the way we've built the budget. That'll be presented next week. Resolutions for it, we probably bring back in the June meeting. Have you guys approve those resolutions at that prior to approving the budget. So with that,
Hold on. Jason, would you like to talk about the picture that's up there?
oh,
Yes,
yeah, there you go.
That piece of equipment you see is our new belt filter press. That sets in the same building that you may have heard of, the Cannibal system.
It's at the
Oh.
wastewater
Set.
plant. The-
So
the
this,
picture-
this piece of equipment will take our solids, activated sludge, and it'll press it into a cake, and it'll come out that auger into the back of a 12-yard dump truck to go to landfill. So we're excited to get this commissioned. If anybody wants to see it, now's a good time because it's not operating yet. It won't be for a few more weeks. But it's really a nice piece of equipment, and they've done a really good job of getting it installed. So excited about that.
And just so I guess the public knows, previous to the cake producing equipment that we can see, how are we disposing of some of the waste that we produce? So
we've currently, if we're not able to put it on a field, which we're limited by permit to put it on ryegrass fields at certain times of the year, we would have to haul it to Albany and pay them to dispose of it. Or we try to put some in our drying beds, which created such an odor issue for the entire portion of the city that's anywhere affected to it, that we quit that. Or we would we rented a belt filter press last year for a little while, and we hauled it the same way, and that seemed to work out the best for us.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the staff, because I think, you brought up earlier making our own hay in terms of chlorine, right? And this is kind of a similar thing. So thank you for being creative, and thank you to staff.
You're welcome.
I just want to say thank you for getting the water treatment plant up and running and the wastewater treatment plant, and us not being in a position where we're kicking the can down the road like we did 10 years ago. And I think that we made the right decisions. They were really hard. Those rate adjustments were difficult for everybody, but we're in a really good place now. And I appreciate all your guys' hard work for doing that and trying to trim everything as far as you could.
Yeah, it is, we are in a good spot with both of our plants. I mean, the wastewater plant's going to need some work in the future, it's old, but I mean, we've got money set aside for that as well. And regulation will dictate most of this, but the water plant is
Yeah.
in really good shape.
Good.
Feel a lot more comfortable at this time than we did last year,
Good.
For sure.
18 months ago, that's for sure.
Other questions?
Okay, great.
Are we going to go to?
We do not have anything for executive session at this point, so we
Okay.
can skip that one for today. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, then we'll adjourn the work session. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. I was hopeful.
That's-
Hopeful, but just